There's a type of overpowered character that's way more interesting than regular overpowered characters. I'm talking about the strongest. Those who aren't just powerful, but way stronger than anyone else in their series. This is an archetype that we see in a lot of anime and manga. Here's the question. Why are some of these characters so awesome that they literally carry their entire series, while others are completely forgettable and just kind of lame? To find the answer to that question, I'm going to take a bunch of these characters, compare them, and figure out what are the ingredients to make the perfect, strongest character. Number 1. Every strongest character needs to be ridiculously overpowered and to show how ridiculously overpowered they are. They need scenes where they do something so absurd that everyone realizes they're on a completely different level. The audience needs to understand that everything they know about this story does not apply to these guys. Not just, oh yeah, they're pretty strong, but genuinely, holy moly, this person could end anyone if they felt like it. The important thing is to make these moments feel almost kind of unfair. Not like a close fight. No. We're talking about moments where enemies get absolutely bamboozled. Basically, if you want a character to be the strongest, we need to see that they are the strongest. Let me start with probably the most famous example of the strongest. Satoru Gojo from Jujutsu Kaisen. From the very beginning of the series, the story tells you that Gojo is the strongest sorcerer in a world full of sorcerers, and they show it to you all the time. There's a scene super early in the series where Gojo is fighting this guy. This is an enemy who's genuinely more powerful than a lot of the characters in the series. So the enemy attacks Gojo, but he can't even touch him. And that's because of Gojo's ability to create this infinite barrier around him. So, you know, he's just standing there completely relaxed and casually explaining how his technique works to his enemy while destroying him. But it gets worse. This fight is so easy that Gojo decides to quickly teleport away, bring his student, and teach him how to fight while using his opponent as an example. The whole situation is literally a joke to him. And trust me, that's pretty much how easy every other fight is to him. So Gojo gets the badge of disrespect. Okay, but what about one of the most legendary strongest characters in history? Meruem from Hunter x Hunter. Okay, what you need to know is that the first time this character appears, we're approximately 200 chapters into the manga, so we already kind of know how things work and how powerful a lot of the characters are, okay? But unlike all the other characters, Meruem doesn't have some training arc where he slowly becomes strong. No, this dude is born like an insect and is just immediately the strongest, smartest, most dangerous creature that has ever existed, ever. There are a couple of moments that show how powerful he is, but none of them are as crazy as that one. Meruem faces off against Netero, who's basically the big boss of the good guys. Netero unleashes a giant golden statue with 100 arms that punch Meruem faster than we can even see. He smacks him. He crushes him. He pulls out every single ultimate move he has. I mean, this would absolutely destroy any other character in the series. But Meruem, he just stands there with a couple of scratches like nothing even happened. Every move Netero makes, Meruem adapts to it, figures it out, and gets closer until he gets him. And the craziest part is that he wasn't even going all out. That's when we realize that all the fights we have seen up until now were nothing compared to this. Meruem has the badge of disrespect. Okay, but what about the main character from the anime that won Anime of the Year? Jinwoo from Solo Leveling. Listen, Jinwoo has all the ingredients for this. He's overpowered, he has cool moves, he destroys his enemies with ease. But the tiny problem is that unlike Meruem and Gojo, he started as the weakest character in the entire series. Early in the story, my man gets defeated by the weakest enemies you could imagine. I mean, he can't take anyone. But the more he fights, the stronger he becomes, which is totally normal, right? Except that he becomes the strongest in like 20 episodes? Every fight starts following the exact same pattern. New enemy appears, everyone freaks out, Jinwoo shows up and casually destroys it and looks cool. When a character starts as the strongest, that's cool. When a character goes from weak to strongest, that's also cool. It's progression and it happens in like a bunch of other series. But when a character goes from the weakest to the strongest in 20 freaking episodes, That's just silly. The overpowered character trope and the underdog story feel like two completely different things. So Jinwoo does not have the badge of disrespect. And that brings me to number 2. Being stupidly overpowered doesn't automatically make a character interesting. The difference between amazing strongest characters and boring overpowered characters is their limits. I know, this sounds insane because why would you want to give your overpowered character limits? But let me cook. If a character can solve literally every problem and beat every single enemy in seconds, then congratulations. That's a boring character. Think about it. If the audience knows that a character is going to win every single fight, then why the heck should they even care about the fights? The moment the audience realizes that there are no real challenges, that's when they stop caring about the story and start looking for something a bit more interesting to watch, to be honest. That's why the strongest characters need limits, even if they're the strongest. And I think the perfect example of that is Escanor from the 7 Deadly Sins. His limit is literally part of his power. Let me explain. Basically, his power is connected to the sun. As the sun rises, he gets stronger and stronger until it's noon and he becomes the One for 1 minute, which kind of means that you can't really beat him. But as the sun goes away, he becomes weaker and weaker until midnight, where he's genuinely the weakest person you could imagine. Like, the guy would probably lose against Jinwoo from the beginning of soul leveling. This creates this incredible strategic element where he has to think very carefully about what time it is. Every important fight becomes this race against time where Escanor has to win as fast as possible. You feel stressed because you know his god mode isn't going to last very long. And the way he transforms honestly makes it even better. Escanor goes from this typical librarian looking guy to a professional freaking bodybuilder. I love this example because it's so simple. It's a flaw in his powers that he has to work around. It doesn't feel like the author is nerfing Escanor to create some kind of drama. It's part of his power. The key here is that all of these limitations feel natural instead of forced. Jinwoo is pretty much the opposite of that. There's this fight where he's against this big insect thing, and this enemy is absolutely busted. I mean, it pretty much destroyed every single person it fought in like seconds. So they start fighting. It looks like it's going to be really challenging. The creature is striking faster and faster until it manages to land an attack that poisons Jinwoo. Everything seems lost until Jinwoo simply gets rid of the poison and wins without a single scratch. This man basically has no real limits on his power, which just destroys any reason to care about what's happening. The story keeps giving Jinwoo new abilities and tools so often that he's never actually threatened by anything. He summons overpowered creatures. He gets special items and rewards. Every single time he has a problem, he immediately has a solution to that problem. He doesn't need to think strategically about anything. He just shows up and wins without any strategy whatsoever. And listen, I love the fights in Soul Leveling. I think they look extremely cool, but am I ever worried that Jinwoo is going to lose? No. Limitations aren't bad. They're what make the overpoweredness interesting. The audience still understands that the character is the strongest, but they also understand that they can't just solve every problem by being the strongest. Limits force creative problem solving, and most importantly, they make you actually care if the character wins or loses. Because when there are real stakes, victories feel earned and unpredictable, and earned victories are usually way more interesting. Number 3, the strongest needs to have the presence, the charisma, the dazzle. In other words, aura. Okay, hear me out. When I say aura, what I'm actually talking about is really basic stuff like how they look, how they sound, how they move, and how everyone else reacts to them. You could have a character with really overwhelming power and really interesting limits, but if they don't make the audience feel this power, then it's going to be pretty hard to take them seriously. The truly legendary strongest characters have this unique presence that's basically impossible to ignore, even if they're a bit more low-key, which is also why they're usually the most popular characters in their series. I've mostly seen 2 ways of creating aura. The first one is visual. So, for example, Gojo is a character who looks super powerful without even doing anything. First off, the blindfold. The reason he wears it is because he can see energy more than anyone else. It's kind of like if you had bright lights shining in your eyes. This is such a genius idea because it immediately makes him look completely different from anyone else. But when he finally takes out that blindfold to reveal these piercing blue eyes, it's always like, he's gonna do it. He's gonna do it. I know it sounds like a detail, but just to show you what I mean, I drew his eyes next to the eyes of other JJK characters. And you can see that his really stand out. That's the kind of thing that makes you immediately notice a character. The blindfold also kind of makes him feel like he doesn't even need to see anyone to destroy them, which really adds to his whole relaxed vibe. This dude is constantly smiling and acting like he's having fun, even when everyone else is freaking out and losing their mind. His body language is perfect too. He sometimes keeps his hand in his pockets during fights. I mean, look at him walking. This is a man who does not care at all. On top of that, he has white hair, which is sort of like the sign of an overpowered character in anime and manga. So basically, the way he looks gives him a lot of aura. Visual aura. For Escanor, he clearly looks mega muscular when he transforms, but that's not the main reason he has aura, in my opinion. Basically, when he goes from weak to strong, it's not only his body that changes. His personality also becomes completely different. That little sweet guy transforms into this absurdly arrogant dude who speaks with a deep voice. And he starts saying some of the most disrespectful stuff you could imagine. At some point, he fights this extremely powerful enemy. He gets hit and it genuinely looks like he might be in big trouble, but then he punches the enemy back, and while he's on the floor, Escanor casually asks,
"What's wrong? Did you find something down there on the ground?"
Then, after the enemy asks for his name, Escanor replies,
"The name's Escanor. Commit it to memory before I kill you."
And finally, when the enemy tells him that his attacks have no effect, Escanor replies,
"My attacks have no effect on you? Who decided that?"
before absolutely annihilating him. And trust me, there is so much more. When we think about legendary overpowered characters in general, one of the things that makes them super memorable is how they act. They are so confident that it really makes you believe that they're extremely powerful. So basically, the way Escanor acts gives him a lot of aura. Behavior aura? I don't know. And usually the best, strongest characters have a combination of the visual stuff and the behavior stuff. They act differently, and they look very different too. For Jinwoo, I think the way he looks is actually kind of genius. He always wears casual clothing like hoodies or shirts, while everyone else is wearing these armors and really fancy fantasy clothes. And that makes you feel that for him, all of this insane fighting is just like a normal thing, like going to the store or something. But the problem is how he acts. He's usually very calm and emotionless, which kind of feels like he's just empty instead of confident. Compare this to Gojo's playfulness or Escanor's pride. Those characters have personality behind their aura, but that's not really the case with Jinwoo, which is why a lot of people say that he feels a little bit like a piece of wood. He doesn't look weak, but for a character who's known as a massive aura farmer, he definitely doesn't have as much aura as other strongest characters. And now we have number 4. Being the strongest should have consequences. The best, strongest characters aren't just powerful. Their power is really important for who they are as humans. Their personality, their relationships, their feelings, all of that stuff is completely connected with the fact that they're ridiculously overpowered. This is how the audience won't just think, hey, this is a cool character. They'll actually understand who the character is as a person. Even though Gojo does this super well, I think the most interesting example is probably Meruem. This dude is literally born the strongest, and in the beginning, that's all he cares about. He has no emotions at all. He doesn't have fun, and he destroys everyone in his path. The reason he does this is because he believes that power is the only thing that actually matters. Anyone weaker than him barely even exists for him. But then something happens. This little human girl called Komugi beats him at a board game. She's this regular kid with a bunch of snot constantly dripping down her nose, but she's not afraid of him. This defeat triggers something that completely transforms Meruem. For the first time in his life, he finds someone who's better than him at something, which forces him to question everything he believes about being the strongest. So later, when he gets attacked by Netero, instead of just destroying him, he wants to find a peaceful solution, which feels so different from how he was in the beginning. His relationship with Komugi makes him realize how empty and wrong he was. He starts experiencing emotions he's never felt before: curiosity, respect, maybe even love. He sees that these feelings don't make him weaker, they make him less empty. This connection between strength and character development is exactly what makes Meruem's arc genuinely beautiful. Unlike Jinwoo, where instead of his power making him more interesting, it actually kind of destroys everything that made him interesting earlier in the series. And finally, Number 5. The strongest characters need to have a strong impact on other characters, the world, and even the story in general. Look at Gojo. The story shows us that he basically changed the entire world of Jujutsu Kaisen. And basically, he lives in a world full of sorcerers, the good guys, and curses, the bad guys. But he was so powerful that he shifted the balance between curses and sorcerers the second he was born. As a kid, very experienced warriors were already extremely scared of him when he was still super young. He's so powerful that it forced every single curse to become more powerful if they wanted to survive. So for the villains, getting rid of Gojo becomes their #1 priority. At some point, one of the villains captures him and he's basically trapped in this separate dimension. And then look at what happens. Suddenly, all the other characters have room to grow because they can't just rely on their overpowered teachers to solve everything. The world immediately becomes way more dangerous without its strongest protector. Meruem is basically a walking natural disaster. His role in Hunter x Hunter is to push every single character and their entire world to their absolute limit, directly or indirectly. The good guys have to bring every single one of their strongest warriors specifically to deal with him. Netero faces his greatest challenge and sacrifices himself. Gon has his dark transformation moment because of what Meruem's guards did. Meruem is kind of like the perfect final boss. Not just because he's ridiculously powerful, but because defeating him requires sacrifices from pretty much everyone. His role elevates the entire Chimera Ant arc from a simple monster hunt into one of the best arcs in anime and manga. In the case of Jinwoo, instead of enhancing the story and making other characters more interesting, everything is just focused on him. The problem is that Jinwoo becomes so ridiculously overpowered that every other character becomes completely pointless. The story introduces interesting allies and enemies, but the moment Jinwoo surpasses them, they might as well not exist. The entire story focuses only on him and how overpowered he is, and weirdly enough, that makes everyone else and him way less interesting. By the end of the story, Jinwoo is basically the only thing that matters in the story. The world feels empty and lifeless because one character's overwhelming power has made everyone lame. All these things together are the difference between a boring, overpowered character and a strongest character that people will remember for the rest of their freaking lives.